This video is brought to you by the No Fear community.
Justin, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Justin, in the book No Fear, Pekka talks about the emergence of these so-called digital cowboys, which refer to people born after 1985 who were just very comfortable with the internet and with mobile technology. And I was just wondering how the topics you cover under leadership and the way you distribute your content has changed with the coming of age of this group.
Well, this group, and the digital cowboys is Pekka's name for them. Other people call them Gen Y, millennials, the net generation. I mean, clearly the biggest change has been in terms of the technology of delivering information. At least I'm a journalist, so that's what I notice. And at HBR, the huge change just over the past 2 or 3 years, finally sort of adjusting to the reality that all these people are potential readers, is we've become a much more digital, have a lot more short content on offer online, a lot more conversation with our readers, a lot more experimentation.
Do you think we're becoming more of an ADD culture where we're becoming more distracted and less able to focus longer, or is it an advantage being able to capture information in shorter?
I mean, there's a huge risk. That ADD culture is a definite risk, and I see it in myself sometimes. I do think that people who've grown up in this, the ones who become effective in business or in other lines of work, are the ones who figure out how to sort of surf the wave and know how to play it, know when to be doing all these short burst things and when to get away from it and focus on something. So, I mean, I think it's just like any technological change. I'm sure the printing press and the ability to read totally messed with the human ability to memorize things, and we're not as good at it as we used to be.
Very interesting.
But, we got some other stuff in the bargain when that came along,
That's
and I think it's the same thing with digital technology.
Okay, great. So another topic that is addressed quite a bit in No Fear is this idea of the international experience and how another term, PlayStation generation, is globally connected from a much earlier age. So you at Harvard Business Review speak to a global audience. Talk to me about how globalization has impacted competitiveness and just impacted the economy in general for you.
Well, we're still trying to figure it out because, yes, suddenly we have, especially online, a mostly international audience and a pretty young audience. And we're still figuring out what they want because we're, I got to admit, not the most global organization. We're a bunch of people sitting around in an office in Watertown, Massachusetts. So, I mean, clearly, I think there are a lot of, both in terms of coming up with products, in terms of communicating in the media, there's this sense where you used to always just see at most a national audience, maybe a local one. And I mean, for lots of things, that's still mostly the way things work. For all that there's this global generation, most phone calls are with people in your own country, most internet communication is with people in your own country. But you always have to be aware that other people could be watching too and could be potential customers. And I mean, I would say I have no formula for that. We're still trying to figure that out.
Now, you are both a leader, a manager of people, and you also cover leadership as a journalist. So another issue relating to digital cowboys is this idea Pekka said about the leadership model having changed. And he talks about how it's suffused with curiosity, immediacy, and there's another C word which I am just... anyway, curiosity, immediacy, and courage. There you go. Courage. So in that kind of an environment, authenticity and trust are paramount. And it's interesting because he says that one of the questions a good leader should ask him or herself every day is, how many mistakes have I made today? So what does that mean to you?
Well, I think Pekka's definitely right that there's this level of, there's this transparency in general that didn't exist in a lot of cases before, and B, there's this expectation from people below a certain age of how you relate to them, that the sort of traditional snow job that was both part of management and also part of marketing products, that just doesn't go over quite as well as it used to, and you're actually better off being honest about what you're doing. I think that's something that we see in a lot of different articles and research that we publish in HBR, this sense of a new management model that's less your classic leader shouting on a mountaintop and much more about listening and sort of figuring out how to get a whole group of people moving along. And there were elements to that to management all along, but I think that both new technologies and these new generations have brought it into starker focus.
And finally, getting to the final question, and really a little bit more personal. With all these changes, you still have your traditional audience, the old guard, the pre-1985, the baby boomers, the Harvard MBAs, the graduates, etc., the global senior executives. Then you have this new generation that communicates differently. So who is the audience that you're speaking to, and how is your voice having to adapt?
I mean, part of what we do is we divide it. We think, okay, this is most likely to hit this established leader group, and this is more likely for the emerging leader. And part of it is in terms of the technology we use to deliver it. The stuff we know is only going to be on the web tends to be a bit jauntier and written more quickly than things in the magazine. But I mean, there's a convergence there too, and definitely in the magazine, we've sort of tried to keep a lot of these old style long research-based articles, but also find different ways of presenting real information, not just bloviating, but presenting stuff in more graphically interesting, in more interesting form, more Q&A type things, just different ways of delivering information that's going to appeal to people across the spectrum.
Okay, and finally, is there anything that you would like our audience to know that they might not already know about HBR, your future plans, or something that's happened recently? Is there anything else you'd like to share today before we wrap up?
We got a really cool iPad app and Android app.
Oh, that's good. I'm an Android. That's good.
Okay. I mean, we've sort of stumbled into this situation. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say stumbled. Maybe my predecessors there knew exactly what they're doing, but into this situation where going from having been this oracle, it's Harvard Business Review, to having possibly the strongest sense of community of any business publication that I know of. Really active commenters, heavy reliance on a sort of steady group of readers who we ask questions about in terms of what we put on our covers, what our books look like, and the rest. So somehow or other we've become a reasonably digital cowboy-esque organization.
Great. Well, I'm going to go download that app today, so thank you very, very much.
This video is brought to you by the No Fear community.